Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. Well, when I first read this MPI today that was talking about broken promises, slogans, dysfunction and division, I actually thought the opposition were putting up an MPI about themselves, and absolutely about themselves. So I'm absolutely delighted to get up and have today talk about the achievements of the first 2 years of the Abbott government. I am a very proud member of this government and the government's team, and despite what those opposite have said, what we are delivering is good government. And a good government is one that delivers in the national interests and actually takes the tough decisions that are needed. And this government has achieved a lot over the first 2 years. And I couldn't possibly lift them all, so I've just gone through, and it didn't take me any time at all to find the first top 50 achievements and decisions that this government has actually made. We haven't just talked about it, we haven't had endless inquiries, we haven't deferred things off past the forward estimates, we haven't prepared complex programs on the back of a coaster. We have done things properly, and we have done a lot in this, country. So what did we inherit? So I just went back and had a quick look to see what we inherited and what the Labor's idea of a good government actually is. So Labor's idea clearly of a good government are record deficits, massive debt, the world's biggest carbon tax, which actually didn't work, many more people unemployed, NBN project delays and cost blowouts, cost of living on the increase, billions of dollars of taxpayer money wasted on pink bats and school halls, grocery watches, fuel choices, and the debacles go on and on and on. Illegal boat arrivals are out of control. They lost control of our borders. Education standards actually slipped significantly under Labor, and health services got more expensive. And to add insult to injury to all of that, despite their absolute promise, defence spending was absolutely gutted. So that is the standard that we've had from Senator Ludwig just then, and that's what Labor think is good government. Well, let me just go through a few of the achievements of this government in 2 very short years. First of all, on the economy, we've abolished the carbon tax, saving Australian families at least $550 a year, and also taking a yoke off small business and also large business, which ultimately creates more jobs. So that's number one. Number two, we've abolished the minerals resource rent tax, which again I know from my own state would have been an absolute disaster. We've conducted a commission of audit, which conducted the most comprehensive review of government spending in a generation to highlight waste and areas of unsustainable spending, which we are now addressing for the first time in history. Those on the opposite side didn't do that. We're stopping Labor's proposed bank deposit tax, again, which was regressive and unnecessary and very punitive. Number 5, despite the rhetoric from those opposites, labour force participation is actually increasing, so much to the point where we've now created over 335,000 jobs. We've actually created 335,000 jobs, and participation rate, particularly amongst women, which is fabulous, is actually increasing. More to be done, but I reckon in 2 years that's good government. So that's a few things on the economy. So what have we done for Australian business and trade in 2 short years? Unlike those opposite who didn't conclude any of these 3 free trade agreements, in the first 12 months, just over 12 months, we finalised 3 free trade agreements with our major trading partners covering over 50% of our exports, Korea, Japan and China. And we're currently in negotiation for India for 4th. That is an enormous achievement. That's what good government looks like, looking towards the economy of the future and where we can create and sustain jobs into the future. We've cut tax for small business. This is number 7, only up to number 7 so far of 50. And this is a government which has been consistently open for business, delivering the biggest tax cut in history for small business. That is what good government looks like. We've introduced an instant asset write-off for small business, which means that all small businesses can actually now invest for jobs and for growth for their future. We've introduced a red tape reduction program with repeal days. So far, what have we done? We've actually cut $2.45 billion in red tape on business. This has exceeded the red tape target by nearly $500 million over 2 years. So we've actually exceeded what our already ambitious targets were 2 years ago. And most importantly for jobs in the future is we've granted over $1 trillion worth of major project environmental approvals so that businesses can get on with the job of creating prosperity and future wealth and, critically, jobs. That's only number 10, and that's only in 2 years. So what have we else done in infrastructure? We've invested heavily in infrastructure. We haven't just talked about it, we haven't made promises, new roads and other major infrastructure. We have actually invested. We've handed down a $50 billion infrastructure package, the single largest infrastructure project in Australia's history. That in itself is good government, and that is progress, amazing progress in 2 years. So what else have we done? We've actually taken another really tough decision for a second airport in Sydney at Badgerys Creek, something that the previous government was completely incapable of making this decision. Why? Because it was a bit of a tough decision. So, number 13 of my top 50 achievements of this government. We're building the roads of the future. Border protection, we've stopped the boats. 50,000 people came under this government, the previous government, who lost control of the borders. 1,200 people died under the Labor and Greens policies, which they supported in government. 1,200 people. Not a single person has died as a result now that we've stopped the boats. We've created the Border Force, which is a wonderful improvement now in the protection of our country borders. We're combating homegrown extremism. We're establishing the Victims of Terrorism Compensation Scheme. We've reintroduced temporary protection visas. Again, just a few of the many achievements in border protection and national security. In the environment, what did the previous government do? Apart from introducing a carbon tax, which, as we've seen, didn't even work, we're actually doing a direct action. We're planting trees. We're getting out. We're looking after the environment. We've got thousands of people across the country working in the environment. You may laugh, but direct action means just that. We're not just talking about protecting the environment, we are actually getting out and protecting the environment. Not only are we building trees, rehabilitating saline farmlands, we're protecting the Great Barrier Reef, and we're doing all of that and still cutting carbon emissions by 26 to 28% by 2030. So not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. Education, they're numerous, but the thing that I'm particularly proud of, as is the Foreign Minister, is the new Colombo Plan. What have we done in 2 short years? By the end of 2016, over 10,000 Australian students will have studied in the Asia-Pacific region. That wasn't done by those who talk about education over there, it was done by this side of government. And in defence, something that I'm extremely passionate about, particularly as I had to suffer through the broken promises working up at Russell offices, when we were promised that there'd be no funding cuts, you made the strategic reform program cuts and reforms and you get the money back. Guess what? Another broken promise by those opposite. And the legacy is going to take at least a decade to fix. The government's conducted a first principles review, which has got universal support and is now actually being implemented. We've commissioned a white paper, the most comprehensive in living memory, and it's the first one, unlike those opposite, that is actually fully costed. It will be absolutely fully costed, including the force structure review. Again, something those opposite were completely incapable of. In my books, that is good government. We've actually initiated a competitive evaluation process for Australia's future submarine program, and we've got 3 potential bidders are now underway. The previous government did not commission a single vessel in 6 years. In 6 years, they did not commission a single vessel, which has resulted in the valley of death that we've been talking about. This government has funded it, and they're now making it a reality. And including, we've also bought and funded the Future Frigate program by 3 years. Those opposite did nothing. We are. We've also brought forward the Pacific Patrol boat tenders, and also we're starting to remediate the issues that were caused by those opposite on the Air Warfare Destroyer program to make sure that it can be delivered. We've invested in the Joint Strike Fighter, and we've also, I think really wonderfully, reinstated the ADF Gap Year program. Now that's only 32 actual delivered achievements in this government. So what's number 33 for regional and Northern Australia? We've delivered the white paper on developing Northern Australia, which, as we know, will result in a complete transformation of our north in terms of the society and the future jobs and growth. We've committed to funding for Northern Australia through the $5 billion investment in the region. We've implemented a comprehensive draft relief package. We've released the Agricultural Competitiveness White Paper. We've also recommenced the live export of sheep, cattle and goats to Bahrain.
Senator Di Natale.